A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, nice to see you all. We are going to talk today about aggravations, provings, and reactions to remedies. So let's just start with an introduction to what they are, what people are, the questions people are asking me about these, and what we can expect. So first of all, a lot of people are saying, okay, I'm having an aggravation to a remedy, or they're coming back saying, oh, I think I'm proving the remedy, or I'm just having a reaction to the remedy. So we're just going to go through all of those different aspects so that we can understand what it is meaning to you, and the types of things to expect. So let's just talk. In fact, let's begin with what a proving is, because we need to know this and understand this, because this is how homeopathy is tested. So basically what happens is that a number of people who are well, i.e. they're not taking any medications, they've not got any diagnosis for anything, and they are generally in good health, and they are given a remedy of a particular potency. Now, they will be given the same potency again and again, and each person might be given the same potency, or they might be given a different potency. And what happens is every day they record with a supervisor exactly what they're feeling, what they're imagining, what is happening, what they're dreaming, what they're eating, what their appetite is, any changes that take place to their normal norm. So what happens is when you've taken a remedy for a number of times, things start to happen and things start to change. So this is how we get a whole Materia Medica of what that remedy might be really useful in helping. So let me give you an example. When they did the proving of Falcon, a lot of people started to want to escape. They wanted to just leave home. They wanted to, they just started reacting in a different way than was norm. So then they would come off the remedy, and all of the information would be written down, and that would then be added and made into a Materia Medica. So a Materia Medica is in fact all of the information that comes from proving, that comes from what people have said when they have taken the remedy. So you can understand, if you take a remedy again and again, you will start to notice a change of emotion, a change of symptoms physically or emotionally or delusionally. Now, we use the word delusion as if you think this might be happening, you feel this might be happening, but it isn't really. So we use the word delusional, much more than you would in normal conversation, effectively, because your body is acting as if this is happening, and it might not really be happening effectively. Okay, so when you take a remedy again and again, it might be that you end up proving the remedy. So if you have taken a remedy continually for a while, and things start to stop, whenever things start to change, you need to stop taking a remedy. You don't carry on. If your homeopath says take this every day for 2 weeks, but something starts to change, you need to stop the remedy and tell your homeopath, this is happening, so I've stopped the remedy. Shall I wait a little while? Because the remedy is asking your body to change something. So when you change, don't keep asking it, otherwise it's going to get pretty mad. Okay, so as soon as there's a change, stop taking the remedy. Remedies, homeopathic remedies, don't work in the same way as normal mainstream medicine. You don't need to keep taking them. You need to take them to instigate a change. When the change happens, stop taking the remedy and wait. So if somebody were to call me and say, oh, I'm having a reaction, I'm having an aggravation, what shall I do? The first thing is, okay, don't take any more remedy. Okay, you don't need any more remedy. The remedy has changed what it needed to change. Now, if the reaction is bearable, just wait. If it is unbearable, then we need to do something about it, and we need to give you something that takes the edge off this aggravation. So, for instance, what we could do is water the remedy down, really dilute it, take it to a different potency effectively, and take that, and it will knock it off the balance that it was, the balance that made that aggravation in the first place. So there are things that we can do if you are having an aggravation and it is really upsetting for you and it is unbearable. I use the word unbearable because if it is bearable, it might be advantageous for you to just wait it out. And the reason for this is because the remedy is asking the body to bring things to the surface. And when they do bring things to the surface, we need to let it out. We don't need to be covering it up and pushing it back in again. So when things are pushed back in again, we call that a suppression of symptoms. And this happens with mainstream medicine. So what happens is you have a symptom, let's say eczema on the skin, and you put steroids on. The steroids act as a suppressive remedy, stopping that symptom. Yes, it takes that symptom away, but what it does is push that back inside. Now, of course, the eczema itself is just a symptom. It's not the problem. The symptom is telling you that there is something that needs to be mended, and the body's struggling to mend it itself. So the symptom comes up and tells you, I've got something wrong, do something about it. We don't want to cover up the symptom. What we want to do is address the original cause. If we just suppress the symptom and send it back in, the symptom will come up somewhere else because our body keeps saying, yes, but that still needs changing. You haven't mended the problem. And what happens with eczema is it goes in, it comes out as asthma. And then you give it steroids again, and then it goes in, and then later on it'll come up as rheumatoid arthritis. So you see how the body is trying to send you a message, but instead of listening to the message, you're actually closing the messenger down. And so this is what we want to be learning about our symptoms. Our symptoms are just messages from our body. We don't want to stop the symptom. We want to alter the cause of the symptom so that the symptom no longer is needed. And this is what homeopathy is all about. Now, let me give you an example of that, which caused a great aggravation, and I'll explain what happened. So when I was training as a homeopath, of course, as you do, sorry, husbands of training homeopaths, but we do tend to practice on you a little bit. And my husband had a wart on his finger, and he'd had the wart for 2 years. And it just was there and wasn't doing anything. He hadn't ever treated it. He doesn't really take medicines, but it was still there. So I thought, after a long study period, I decided I was going to give him Calcarea carbonica and just 1 dose of 30C. And so he had the Calcarea carbonica 30C, 1 dose, and fine. But next day, he reacted, and he came out in a rash, and the rash was all across his wrist, and then it went up his arm, then it went up his chest, and it went around the back of his neck, and it was a real red, flary rash. There was no doubt that he had a reaction to this remedy. And we could even call that an aggravation, because he wasn't very happy about it. Now, my answer to that is, that's interesting, isn't it? And he said, what have you done? And I said, well, when has this happened before? This is something that has been suppressed in your body, and that remedy is bringing it out. He said, don't be silly. I haven't ever had any skin reactions. So I said, no, that's not how homeopathy works. Let me speak to your mother. So I spoke to his mother, and he had had scarlet fever. And he'd been in hospital with it, and he'd had medications for it. And the medications had suppressed it. They had quite rightly sent the scarlet fever away, but it was still in the body. So this 1 dose of Calcarea carbonica had brought out the scarlet fever. Now, unfortunately for my husband, this aggravation did take a good 10 days to 2 weeks to relax and resolve. But my husband doesn't take medications, and so he let it resolve. And I wasn't experienced enough how to know how to take it down a level at that stage either. So I said, no, sorry, you just have to live it out. You'll be fine. It'll all be okay. Anyway, so 2 weeks later, the rash has disappeared and his wart fell off, but also he seemed no longer to be allergic to cats. So isn't that amazing response to Calcarea carbonica 30C? Now, this doesn't mean to say that if you're allergic to cats, that's the remedy for you. This means that with him, certain things had piled up, and the remedy was addressing the cause of it, and a lot of things underneath started to happen. And when that started to happen, then it was more than just a symptom that was resolved. It was a whole history of health, layers of health that had built up were affected. So now you might call that an aggravation. I would call that a reaction. But the important thing is that it was the right remedy. It could have perhaps been, if I'd have known he was such a sensitive soul, I might have given it to him in water, because we don't want people suffering through the healing. We want the healing to be as pain-free as possible. So in future, I might, if I'm going to give him that remedy again, I would give that remedy in water. In actual fact, he's absolutely fine now with Calcarea carbonica. He does have it on occasions, because it does solve a lot of things as a constitutional remedy for him. But we can see with this remedy, we don't need to go high. And a lot of people will say to me, aggravations happen more on higher potencies. Now, personally, I don't have that experience. I experience more aggravations on lower potencies, and the higher potencies don't tend, for me, to be as prevalent, really. But maybe that's because we're talking about the difference between physical and emotional health. So I would tend to use emotional remedies. If the energy is good in the client, I would use much higher potencies. But for more physical, I would use lower potencies. So we would expect an aggravation to be a physical aggravation. So maybe just by changing that potency slightly, we can actually change that aggravation. But what I'm trying to explain here is that aggravations is not necessarily bad or upsetting if it is bearable. If it is bearable, what it is doing is saying, hey, body, change this, do something with this, hit this, fight this, do something. And then when it does something, then we start to see a healing process happen. Now, all I'm asking is, is it possible for you to wait this out? Because we might be talking an hour, we might be talking an afternoon, we might be talking a week or 2 weeks. So depending on you and your strength will depend on what we're going to do about it. But we don't see it as a bad thing. We see it as we're very close, but something wasn't quite right. Either the remedy was just slightly off. So Calcarea carbonica could have actually, Calc might have been a slightly better remedy, or the potency was slightly too strong and we need to bring it down a bit. So something was slightly wrong, but the main thing was we were very, very close. Can your body cope with that? Or do we need to bring you back down to 0 and start again? That will depend on your energy and your strength. And of course, your energy and your strength will dictate what potency we're going to use in the first place. So depending on the energy of the symptom and of the patient will decide which potency is used. But if we get an aggravation or a reaction, then we misjudged it slightly. Or we don't know the patient very well and we don't know their sensitivities. Now, sometimes it's really, really difficult. I have one client who's absolutely fine with most remedies, but one remedy in particular really gives her a huge aggravation. And the remedy is Ruta. So it's a remedy that I would never even dream would be a sensitive remedy. But for her it is, and it really affects the thyroid, but it really sends her into, heart palpitations and high reaction. So actually with this remedy, she just needs to open the jar or hold the remedy in her hand. She doesn't even need to put it onto her skin. Sometimes I say put it in liquid and rub the solution on your skin if you're a sensitive person. She just needs to hold it for a few minutes, and that will be enough for her to absorb the energy of the remedy. Now, remember that homeopathy is an energy remedy. And so we're talking about absorbing energies. What do we need? If we need it, we absorb it. If we don't need it, we don't absorb it. So it's getting it right, understanding your body. So what you can see from this is that you are learning so much more about your body and about how your body reacts. But it could be different with different remedies. So some remedies are very slow remedies, and I would say Ruta was a slow remedy, as well as Calcarea carbonica. But some remedies are really high active, high energy remedies. And, so you might go to different potencies because of that. But the thing you need to know is what to do about it. Are you able to stop and wait? Are you able to knock it off balance. There are a number of ways to knock it off balance. And my first thing would be, if you've taken a remedy dry, I would put it in a glass of water, give it a bash round with a spoon, and take a spoonful of that water, because that will mean that you're taking the same remedy at a slightly different potency, and that will knock off that aggravation. But another thing that you might want to do is take another remedy that would knock it off. And the most potent of those would be Camphor. And in our 50 kit, there is Camphor there for you to do that. If you have Camphor in another form, in an oil or something else in the house, just the smell of it will knock that remedy off. So you're back to square one. You just start again, basically. Approving wouldn't happen until you had taken a remedy 5 or 6 times, I would say. Some people take them much, much longer. And I know that there are certain ways of prescribing homeopathy where you take the same remedy again and again, day after day after day. Now, as a classical homeopath, I would say take the remedy until there's a change, but you must stop when there's a change, okay? If you stop the first moment there's a change, you won't get approving. So I hope that explains all about that. It's much easier if you are aware of what might happen and we've set your expectations of not to worrying about it. So setting your expectations about what might happen is sometimes useful. Although, of course, if I put it into your mind that this might happen, then you're waiting for that to happen. All right. So sometimes I wouldn't be saying anything. And when people say, well, what should I expect from this? And I don't like to say, well, this might happen and that might happen, because then you're looking out for that and you're not going to tell me about all of the other things that might happen. So quite often I would say, just let me know if you react a different way in anything at all. If anything is a slight surprise to you, let me know that. And so that helps you understand more about how your body's going to react to certain things, how you're going to react emotionally to things around you, how you're going to react when somebody says something. Will you react differently? That is the type of things that we want to know, and we are waiting for as a reaction to a remedy. So get to know yourself, get to know your remedies, get to know your symptoms, and get to know your reactions, because that's what's really, really helpful when it comes to homeopathy. So I hope this was useful for you, and I hope that you're not worried now about aggravations, provings, reactions to remedies, and you just take it in your stride as your energy and what needs to come out.
Next week, I'll be talking to Jonathan Stalick. He's been a practicing homeopath for over 30 years and obviously has a wealth of information that you'll be really interested to hear about. We'll talk about his experiences during the 90s, about treating AIDS patients, and also about his new eczema cream that he has just promoted and just launched in the UK. And really, you need to hear about it wherever you are. I do hope you're enjoying our episodes, our podcast episodes. It's so important to be spreading the word of homeopathy around the world. So if you have enjoyed today, please do hit the subscribe button, and please do tell your friends about Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.